Okay. So previously we talked about like how fear, if we observe it correctly, it will take us from fear into love, where we move through a thing, and then into power, where we like have the opportunity to share it with like the collective, right? What we have not talked about is what happens when you don't observe the fear correctly. Which direction does the fear take you, right? And so as we previously talked about, like everything we do in our life is creating a frequency, right? Life is frequency work. And whatever we do and whatever intentions we set or whatever our process to getting that thing is going to manifest either fear or love into our life. This is connected to a lot of the other lessons that we've done. So when we talked about like capitalism versus manifestation, this is the same way, and this is how it happens. So then I'm gonna break down how you go in the opposite direction, and then what some of the signs are that you going in the opposite direction, right? So we talked about, okay, if you observe everything, you go from fear, you go to love, you go to power, right? And then you transcended that thing. What happens when you don't do that? What happens when you don't do that is you go from fear to hate to possession, right? Which is inauthenticity. And so I think when we talk about like possession, especially when people like discuss demonic possessions, they talk about it in this like real metaphysical way, and they don't understand that like it is a subtle thing that happens a lot of times where you just keep giving an energetic yes to things that are not of God, and then you end up being fully possessed by that thing because you kept saying yes to it, right? So the example I'm going to be working with today, because it's an example that we talked about before, is comparison, and how comparison can transcend you into being an inauthenticity, which is basically a full-on possession, right? So when you think about something like comparison, right? A lot of times we don't actually think about the origin of what possession is. So, I mean, of what comparison is. A lot of times when somebody's having comparison, there that's rooted in a lot of things, right? We're feeling like we're unworthy, so we're comparing ourselves to other people. We want the things that the other person has, or we want, to have this certain experience, and we're upset because it's not happening, or it's rooted in some insecurity, or whatever the case may be, right? If you sit with comparison long enough, that's the first sign of fear. If you sit with comparison long enough, you can go the opposite direction and transcend it. But if you don't move with God in that transcendence, and you allowed your ego to take over, which is the frequency of fear, it will take you in the opposite direction. And let me explain. If you're experiencing comparison, you're probably experiencing things like devaluing of self, right? Because you're trying to figure out what is that person doing that they getting the things that I want, but that I'm not doing, right? So what you're doing is you're cultivating this energy of distrust in God, which essentially is distrust in self, right? Because what you're saying is, I don't really believe that I can have those things because I'm upset that someone else has them. Or you're comparing what you should be doing in your life, your unique gifts that are given to you by God, to that person's, right? My gifts have not yielded me these things, blah, blah, blah. So it's a devaluing issue, right? It also is a distress issue, right? So you're also devaluing the presence of God in your life, because remember, God is always working in our life as long as we keep surrendering. We learned that in the 10 days of surrendering. But if you're devaluing the presence, then it's transcending you into a lower vibration of that presence, right? All right. So a lot of people move from comparison into something like judgment, right? When you move into judgment, now you're moving into hate. And let me explain to you how hate creep like doubles down on this frequency of fear in your life. Because what happens with judgment is now you start to lose your humanity, because you're looking at other people and you saying like, oh, she be doing so and so and so. I bet you she this, that, and the third. I heard this about so and so and so, or she should be doing it like this, or this, that, and the third, right? And so you're not seeing that. You're also not seeing the value in them as well. So you transcend into this whole hate, and what ends up happening is the lower vibration tricks you into speaking something other than life. So now you talking to the universe, you talking to the presence of God, you talking to whatever it is that you believe to be the higher source. You're telling it that I want to stay in this place of judgment because I don't believe, which was the root of the comparison, right? And so then you're creating this frequency of fear that's now starting to cultivate into your life, that you have this relationship with fear instead you have this relationship with love, which is where the presence of God lays, right? So now you, instead of just observing it, you become one with it, and now there's this frequency of let's talk, let's be in relationship, which is actually what you should be doing with God. You're being in relationship with that fear now, and it's transcending into hate. And what happens is that relationship with fear, that conversation, that dialogue from you giving the energetic yes, if you've been on previous lives or in previous lessons, what happens is it starts to talk to you and give you directions rather than God, right? So now it's telling you, well, she doing A, B, and C, or they're doing A, B, and C. So in order for us to have this, we have to align to the thing that they are doing that is working for them, instead of what God is telling us to do, what the presence of God is telling us to do in our lives, right? So now you got this direction because you no longer, you didn't surrender it, right? Because you moved into hate. So now you got this mind that's telling you to do a thing. You got this body that is triggered, right? And you got this heart that is not surrendered to God. And so the desires of the heart is not pure. So now you're starting to align to this frequency of fear because the hate is telling you and the judgment is telling you, in order for us to have these things that we feel like we deserve because we don't value what is in our own alignment, we need to align to the frequency of that thing, right? And so when you start to align to the frequency of that thing, you are misaligning to the frequency of God, which is what you're supposed to have in your life, right? You still with me? This makes sense? As you align to it, think about this as alignment, right? And if this is the presence of God, and this is the presence of your ego, and you have chosen or you've started to align to the presence of your ego, and now you're in this dialogue of fear, you're in this dialogue in this conversation with fear, right? And you're building this relationship with fear that has transcended you into hate. Now you're starting to line, you're moving into inauthenticity, all right? When you start to move into inauthenticity, you have entered into a full presence of a lower vibration. It's become a presence now, right? You move from relationships. So think about when you fall in love with somebody. You got this whole relationship with them, you talking to them, y'all talking on the phone, you getting to know them, you find out what you like about them, you become immersed in that person at some point, right? And so this happens to a lot of people in relationships, and I'll break it down how it happens in relationships. But now you're starting to align to this frequency, which means you're moving in inauthenticity, right? Once you get into that inauthenticity, ain't no telling what you'll do, right? Because it's instant misalignment. And so what happens is every day, in order to live in that inauthenticity, you got to keep on waking up saying yes to something that is other than the presence of God, which is other than the highest essence of yourself, which is the presence of God, right? So every day you wake up and you say yes to something, and moves you further and further and further and further and further and further. And so now this detour that you initially had has turned into this whole new situation, right? So a lot of people be talking about, how did P. Diddy get into the situation that he got into? How do all of these stars get into these situations that they got into? A possession isn't always boom, you possessed by a demon. You have to surrender your entire body to that thing, right? And so every day that you wake up and you say yes to something that feels inauthentic to you within the presence of God, you see what I'm saying? You're aligning to the presence of something else. And so now you're in inauthenticity. So this is how we get to a place where you done manifested something so grand. So like, like P. Diddy, baby, he had the life, all right? But the life was never aligned with with who he truly is. So you got to keep on. It's just like your mom used to tell you, if you tell one lie, you got to keep on telling another. The ancestors didn't lie. They're telling you the truth. If you wake up and you choose to be something other than the presence or the expression of God that you should be being today in this life, you're aligning to the presence of the opposite, right? Which is a lower frequency, or we call it the devil, the enemy, whatever you want to call it. It's just a lower frequency of God, right? That is not aligned to you. When you choose to keep doing that, you're becoming possessed, because what you're essentially doing is allowing the thing to take over you. And so that's how you end up in this manifestation of shit. And you just like, what is this, right? So let's talk about some ways that you can do it. Does this make sense to you? Does this make sense? A lot of times when you get into this space, what happens is you start doing shit that's out of integrity. This is not the morals. This is not your values, right? I like to call this the journey of sin to self, because you have to keep on saying, I'm not going to do what feels good to me. I'm not going to do what feels right to me. And no matter how far you get into it, there's always this small space inside of you that is like, this ain't a God. This ain't God. It's always there until one day you tell it to shut the fuck up. And then it don't speak no more until you seek it again, right? But there is always, for a long period of time, a lot of these people know that this is happening. That's why you see a lot of people who are living this like, pay attention. These are the people who are rich, but they drug addicts. These are the people who have the life that you want, but they have terrible relationships. These are the people who are overeating, doing shit like this. You see what I'm saying? Like a lot of them have addictive personalities. They have addictive patterns in their life, right? Because they need something to cope. They need something to cope with the fact that this is not who they really are, right? This is the people who are over sexualizing, the addicts, the people who overindulge in shit. That's what this is. I used to be upset that I could never stay complacent in a workspace until I realized it wasn't a bad thing. God ain't want me there. Period. My mom used to do this. I actually just made a piece of content today, like, because I'm moving into storytelling. My mom used to say, once God told me this ain't where you're supposed to be no more, and I didn't serve my purpose, she would just get up and leave in the middle of it, right? It don't matter. That's the truth. So this is how you get them people, right? So first, let me break down how this looks in case you just came in. So I was working with the example of comparison, right? So what we're talking about is we've already talked about how do you manifest the frequency of love. The frequency of love looks like this. You observe fear in your life, which is an allowance of God saying, this is a space and area in your life that you are not surrendered. You have not surrendered to me, all right? If you observe that thing correctly and you go with God, you're going to move from fear into love, which is you processing through that thing through the power of God. You come out in power. You transcend that thing, you ascend. All right. And now you can share that with the collective. If you are unable to do that, what happens to a lot of us is that the fear consumes us. And then we move from fear into hate, into full on possession or inauthenticity, right? And so when people talk about being inauthentic, it's like, baby, you're possessed. That's what happened. A demonic possession doesn't have to be this big, long, drawn out thing that we make it. Sometimes it's just subtle yeses, energetic yeses. And one day you end up in a world of shit that you never intended to be in. But now, in order to keep the reality that you manifested, that for a lot of people, because they're attached to materialistic things they want to keep, they have to keep on saying no to God and yes to something else. And so I use the example of comparison, right? So let's talk about the let me define comparison within this conversation, right? When I talk about comparison, I'm talking about seeking a face other than God in the quest to realizing your purpose or dream. So a lot of times we want to get to our purpose, we want to get to our dreams, we want to get to all the visions that we have that God has planted into us, right? In order to do that, you have to seek the face of God. When you start seeking something else, like money, like houses, like cars, like clothes, like being known, like all these different things, that's when you know you in comparison. Because where'd you get that ideal from? All right. So let's talk about judgment in context. A thought or word that attempts to place a spell on someone else's existence out of jealousy that results in your own heart's affliction. All right. So what that means is you are unclear that you are speaking from an impure place and you continue to do that. And in doing that, you are casting a spell in your own life because you refuse to observe the fear in a proper way. All right. Inauthenticity, a possession of a spirit other than the Most High God's that overtakes each portion of a being until they have completely dissipated, and the essence of them as God has relinquished completely. So basically, as you keep saying yes to something else, you're relinquishing certain areas of yourself from being in the presence of God, not because God is leaving you, but because you're choosing to not be with God in that place, right? And so it's really that simple. We don't need nothing to let us know. If we say yes to things other than God, we will end up in his presence. If we say yes to God, we will end up in the presence of God, right? And so let's talk about some of the ways that we end up in these inauthentic places. It happens really small. And I'm gonna tell you, one big thing is lying. And I'm not talking about necessarily. There's a portion of this that is lying to others, but there's a large portion of this that is lying to yourself. You know when it don't feel right. You know when your gut that you surrender to God is saying, don't you do that thing. Don't you go to that place. Don't you get into that partnership. Don't you have sex with that person. Don't you eat that thing. You know when it's saying that. You can feel that, right? And if you've done the 10 days of surrender, you can't tell me you can't tell me that you don't know when it doesn't feel right. It's a natural thing. God is always with us, right? You know. So a lot of times what we do is we push past that. Them red flags y'all be seeing in the relationships, you pushing past that. This is what this is talking about. You pushing past that. You're living in inauthenticity because this doesn't feel good to you, but you keep saying yes to it, right? This is how you be like, she was so nice and she had such a kind heart, and then her boyfriend killed her. Baby girl knew that she shouldn't have been in that space with that man. He knew he shouldn't have been in that space with that woman. But he kept saying yes. She kept saying yes and pushing past that red flag when God's still voice said, that ain't right. This ain't right. You feel that in your gut. You feel that in the base of your spine. You kept going and you had to tell yourself a lie to keep going. That's how you end up in the presence of something other than God. It's really that simple. Thinking that you loving somebody, but actually what you're doing is not loving self. It's that simple, right? You know, sometimes it is meant for you to help a person, right? And you can feel that too. But that's the thing. Them friendships that folks be in, and they be saying, "Oh yeah, I be doing this and I be doing that, trying to look cool and shit." Same thing. That's how people end up in addiction. You went to the party, baby, and they was doing white girl at the party. You should have said no because it didn't feel right to you, but you wanted to fit in. You wanted to align yourself to those people, and it led you to this world, right? So we have to think of every time that we have a decision, especially when we feel our gut telling us no, in the presence of God telling us no, that's a portal into another world, right? That we're not supposed to be in. And so if you keep on saying yes to that portal, you end up in that other world, which is in that thing's presence. It's real simple. We do this all the time, lying to self. And sometimes when we lie to others and we tell others that we want to do something that we don't want to do, it's the same thing. Instead of just observing, why don't we want to do the thing, right? That's a big way that we end up in this situation. Does this make sense? Another way is not having proper boundaries and violating our own internal boundaries, right? And so that comes out as lying too, but just like setting a boundary and just not honoring it within, right? So like when people move past that boundary, not being like, I set this boundary and that boundary and that boundary and that boundary, and they keep crossing it. This doesn't feel in alignment for me. A lot of people end up in bad relationships like this because sometimes the person is good, that person is good, and this person is good, but the relationship is not, right? Because what I feel like we really struggle to understand is that sometimes things just don't work out, and that's okay. And a lot of times when we set a boundary or we submit an ask and a person tells us, I can't honor that, we try to stay in a relationship because we honor the fact that they're being truthful. It's a time when you really should walk away, right? Especially when you know that boundary isn't rooted in trauma. I'm gonna tell you another big way that we do this, especially in our workspaces. We code switch. Baby, code switching is one of the biggest ways that you end up in inauthenticity, and you wouldn't believe. It's out of survival, it's out of the frequency of fear. It is what it is. If you're going to work and you are a totally different person than what you are at home, not there is a certain portion of you that you are able to that you're willing to share with the job, and there's other portions that don't belong there. Not that. You a totally different person, meaning you talking like this today, but when you get to work, you're going, hi guys, baby. That's who the fuck is that? Like, who is that? That's inauthenticity. You're living in two different spaces. You're trying to serve two masters, and you can't do that. Quit the job and start the business, baby, or move jobs. All right. I'm not telling you to quit your job in this economy, but I am telling you that if you are going to work and you got a whole different personality at work than you got at home and in any other space in your life where you feel safe, you are committing to being in a presence that is not of God and that is aligned to something of the opposite in your life. That's just that. Nobody who has ever code switch has quit a job and said that was the most beautiful experience because of blah 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 blah. They said that quitting the job, most of them said quitting the job was the best thing, or getting fired from the job was the best thing that could have ever happened to them, because they was able to actually be who they are, and they was able to start that business, and they wouldn't be where they was today. Nobody ever be like, the code switching was good for me. Nobody ever said that. No one. That's a big way that we do this. All right. Not taking time and space for self. Sometimes we make decisions too fast. We could just say no today and tarry on that thing. You know what I'm saying? If you're not from the South or you ain't grew up in church, tarry means we could pray about it. We could take some time to think about it, so and so and so. Letting people rush you into decisions is a form of inauthenticity. Every decision don't need to be made right now. That's a lie. From what, as my elders would say, that's a lie from the pits of hell. You don't have to make every decision right now. Making decisions sometime hastily, where you just doing shit, it's the worst thing that you could ever do. You know what I'm saying? Like, you make a decision and that decision ends you up in the frequency of God. I'm gonna tell you how a lot of people ended up. Y'all be talking about the Illuminati, them quick contract signs. Oh, you only got 48 hours. Baby, God wouldn't do that to you. God would not do that shit to you. And that's how people end up in contract, that they fighting 10 years to get out. And now, instead of them being so-and-so artists, they the artists formerly known as blah, blah, blah. Okay? That's the thing. I'm going to tell y'all another way we keep living in inauthenticity, aligning to our struggles that we've already transcended and using them as a way to connect to others. Baby, how many years sober is you going to be? You 45 years sober. When you going to say I'm free? Why do you keep aligning to that? Why do you keep aligning to something that you died to? All right. That's another way. Another way that we do this shit and lying is telling stories to people that are not true, right? To try to connect with them. Baby, if you keep telling that same story, your body, your DNA is going, your cells are going to start to believe it. And then you have to do the healing work for yourself and for your generations to elevate out of that, because you've made it a true story in your life. That's a big way. Okay, love you. That's a big way. When you, them people that every time they tell you a story, you got that urge to tell them a story, to level them up, to try to connect to them or be a part of the conversation. Baby, leave the conversation. That's an internal boundary. It's okay to be like, this space is not for me because I don't have anything genuine to offer this space. But the moment that you start telling lies, you're birthing them and you're aligning to something else, right? Because you're using your mouth. So this is the same as the example of judgment, okay? It's the same thing, because essentially you are moving with a little bit of judgment, because what you basically saying is, damn, this experience is fucked up. I wonder how I could come down to their level to align to them. But a lot of people don't realize that's what they're saying. And because you're saying that, you are aligning to them, right? And now you're birthing that struggle into your own life. You're gonna have to do the healing work associated with that if you keep telling that same story, because you're creating this frequency through your mouth. It's the same thing when we was talking about the spell of judgment. It's your own affliction. All right. Does this make sense? So let's talk about, tell me if this makes sense before we move forward. Let's talk about how we could deal with comparison. Because I feel like comparison is really a struggle for the collective right now. Mainly because of social media. I feel like social media, it's it be lying. Let's just put it like that. A lot of people be lying on social media. And even if the portions of people's lives that we see are true in some to some extent, baby, everybody is experiencing something, right? So, for example, baby, you might travel every day of your life, but you really want a man and kids. Or you might be you might be sorry, I was reading the comment. Or you might be living the dream that somebody else, but there's some other area of your life, of that person's life, that we don't see, that is not aligned. People showing us a lot of times the best areas of their lives, right? Which is sad for a lot of people, because some of the stuff that people show us is not eating. Okay. Makes me think of, in the beginning was the word, and the word, yeah, was with the Lord. Yeah. When God first started creating the earth, the heavens and the earth. Absolutely. that's very similar because a lot of people don't think about the fact that, like, okay, we already talked about the fact that once we accept God to live inside of us, then now we're embodying God, right? Once we embody God, that means we also have the power of God, right? Especially because we know that we're God's reflections. So that means we have the same power to create our realities that God had when He created the heavens, the earth, and all things in the universe, right? And so I feel like we don't really take our word as bond. Like it's a really serious thing. Like if you read the four agreements, that's one of the four agreements, like being impeccable with your words. Words really are spells. We have a whole civilization of people, the Gullah Geechee, the only thing they do is use sound, really. You know what I'm saying? Everything is sound, right? And a lot of the sound is from their mouth. And so not all of it, but a lot of the sound is from their mouth, right? Prayer, like I think a lot of the Christian values that we have detached from because we don't like the institution, I feel like our ancestors really gave us the game, right? I don't know about y'all, but I grew up in the South where they taught us to walk the floor and pray. And baby, I'm gonna tell you one thing: I can light a candle. When I walk that floor, baby, and I start praying in tongues, oh baby, everything is gonna move, heavens and earth. All right, it's the same for everybody, but I feel like we have gotten into this like spiritualist situation, right? Even when we talk about things like hoodoo or whatever, like if you know, from the South or any place, I feel like there's a lot of East Coast people whose people transit, like migrated from the South who also practice hoodoo. But I feel like I don't think people really realize that hoodoo is for our healing. So a lot of times what our people were trying to do was they was trying to move their intentions to something of the elements, some other reflection of God, so that they can release that thing and then move into speaking life. Like at the end of the day, all the conjure tools, all the tools that we have are really just tools. But baby, this mouth and this embodiment is the best tool that you got. And being able to speak and move your words to being impeccable will transform everything around you. It really will. I think the problem is a lot of the spiritual practices have gotten to this place where they try to discount the word, and they try to spiritual bypass, I guess. They try to spiritually bypass what you need to do to actually believe the word that you speak, right? And so a lot of the things that we manifest a lot of times are not, or people manifest when they're in an unfavorable position, is because you believed the lower vibration. You didn't believe the higher vibration. And so you had to move through the things in your body that are keeping you from actually believing and putting the feeling together, pairing the feeling with the belief to bring that thing forward. You see what I'm saying? And so that's why I moved through the four steps of prayer, because if you don't surrender that thing or you're not able to move through that thing in your body, then you can't move to the next feeling that will help you get closer to actually believing that word. That's the difference, right? And so people have created all of these little systems to try to get you to bypass, you know what I'm saying, the experience of healing, but that's never how God meant it to be. So the problem is, if you find yourself speaking words you can't believe, you got to figure out what is the disbelief, and that is observing the fear. But you just have to make sure that you go with God in that observation of fear and move into love and power, so that as you transcend the words that you speak, you start to see, because now you're in belief rather than in the opposite way, right? So it's the truth. I think that people just they don't really believe in the word like they say they do. They don't believe in themselves. And because they don't believe in themselves, that means they don't believe in the power of God. And that's why their manifestations don't come through. And when they do come through, it's that physical thing, because that was what you were serving. If you serve God with your word and you live in the presence of God, when you get to the manifestation, all you're doing is you are elevating the frequency of God, right? I'm just lifting the frequency of God in my life. That's all. I'm being in a relationship with God. Yes, I have desires in my heart, but because my heart is aligned with God, those desires are aligned with God. But it's like if you keep lifting the frequency of God in your life, right? When you get to the manifestation, things that you wouldn't even have imagined or thought of will be there, because there's perfection in the presence of God, right? That's something that as humans we don't necessarily have. But people don't really believe in their words because they let the world around them tell them what's going to happen. So that's what I mean when I talk about something like comparison. It's like you're digesting that thing. And because you're digesting and you're absorbing instead of putting out in a sense of this is what is whole in me. And I'm going to tell the reality outside of me and the expressions of God outside of me what I want. And they have no, and I'm going to show them what I want. And they have no choice but to show it to me back because this is what I've given them. You consume those things and then you give it back and then you create that cycle of fear versus I'm going to exude the frequency of love. The universe is going to give me the frequency of love back. And then we're going to create this conversation and this dialogue between me and God to where the frequency of love is this constant and consistent flow of ease, rest, and manifestation. Yes, you're still going to have challenges in life as you keep surrendering each part of your life, but then this flow happens and then people will be like, oh, how do you live in your purpose? And what's my life purpose? Blah, blah, blah. Baby, I'm going to tell you, your only purpose is to live in the presence of God, move from love, move from fear into love, into power, right? And that power, once you move through that power and you share with the collective, you are living in your purpose, right? Because as long as you live and exist with the intent of expressing and sharing with God's people, which is what we was born to do, you're going to always be in your purpose, right? And your purpose will transcend you into your highest timeline. Yeah, we are channeling the spirit. She said, would you say that we're channeling the spirit of God with the word as well? Yeah, it's just which part. You know what I'm saying? Like God is already in us, right? So that's why our word is so powerful as it is. You can use that power to do either or. You see what I'm saying? And so if you use that power to bring forth negative, then that's what you'll see. If you use that power to bring forth love, light, and positivity, then that's what you'll see. You see what I'm saying? Does that make sense? It's just really very simple, which is why I totally restructured my entire business structure because the reality is I don't want to be God in nobody's life. You see what I'm saying? And as a healer, if you position yourself as a person that they have to keep coming back to, then you will, they'll be looking to you to be God, right? I could be a reflection of God, but I don't want to be God in someone's life, right? And so I think when you position yourself to be God, you get depleted. When you position yourself to be a reflection of God, you cannot be depleted because we are all that, right? And so my desire is always to push people into the presence of God so that they can move with God on their own, right? And so I think in my previous business model, it was like, it was a doing, do, right? And it's like, I don't want to do. God can do that for you, right? As long as you learn the principles of how to live with, like how to honor the temple of the spirit and use it to bring forth the reality of the presence of God, right? Because whether we want to believe it or not, the reality of the presence of God is it's all over the place. It is our own disbelief. Hear me when I say this. Let me go back. The reality of the presence of God is always here. All right. In this room right now, with the dirty laundry right here that I got to get out because it's not supposed to be in the office, the toy bucket right here, okay, the mirror that my kids broke, the toys in the corner over here, right? This desk and this chair, this is the reality of the presence of God because this will be an office that I will gain wealth in. You see what I'm saying? That is the reality of the presence of God. It's already here, all right? The things that we see in the world, it is our disbelief that allows the things, the illusions of something other than the presence of God to overtake what the presence of God and the reality of the presence of God is in our life. Do you hear what I'm saying? So it would be me if I let these clothes sit here because this is an office, baby. It's not a closet. It would be me if I let these toys sit here because this is an office, baby. It's not a playroom. It would be me if I let this sit here because this is not a place for a dresser. It would be me if I let the mirror stay broken because this is a place for divine reflection, not broken reflection. You see what I'm saying? It would be me. if I let it be here. It would be my own disbelief that this is not an office if I let that stay here. It's our own disbelief that does that. The presence of God is always here. It's whether we choose to live in the reality or not, and whether we choose to observe the fear and move into love and power or hate and possession. You see what I'm saying? That's what people don't understand. Unlimited potential exists. Our energy chooses the reality to come to exist. Exactly. It's already here. We have to stop believing that I gotta manifest, I gotta manifest, That's bullshit. I'm gonna be honest. You don't have to manifest anything. You have to tap into the presence of God in your life, right? So when I came in this room and I said, I thought I was gonna make this room into a closet. Actually, what I need is an office, all right? God had already previously told me I needed to make a prayer room, and that prayer room needs to be my office, right? I said, God, where am I going to put that at? Okay. You're going to put that in the closet, because before this place was going to be a closet, because we needed more space for clothes, it was my kids' room. And I was in the other room, and the front room was a dining room that I turned into my bedroom. You see what I'm saying? Are you understanding the metaphor? Because I thought I don't have space. I was looking for co-working spaces. I was looking for office spaces. And I was like, I don't really want to do that, because I want to be at home with my family at this current space, right? In this current time, because I have 4 daughters. Y'all know the story. So I sat back, I went to meditation in my living room on the floor. I said, God, can you show me how I can transcend this space to meet all of my family's needs? Immediately, God said, okay, move your kids into this space where you are. Move this space into your bedroom. Then you could bring the dining room into this area and put the couch over here, right? And then you got a free room, all right? And so at first I was like, okay, I'm gonna have a closet. We got more space, right? All right, then a couple days later, God said, no, this needs to be the prayer room in your office, because what I'm about to do in your life, you need space. You need a sacred space where you teach. So you can be in this space. And then when you leave the space, you could be a mother, you could be a wife, you could be all the other hats that I've given you in your life. Okay. Also, you need to start creating in this space prior to. So when I give you the garden is moving off of that frequency, and you could quickly, bring the garden for it. I said, okay, okay, okay. So then I said, well, what I'm gonna do with all the clothes? Oh, well, since you moved this, that, and the there, that little closet thing that you had in there that you thought you was gonna be, move that into your room, because now you got this big space in your room that you didn't have before, and that'll clear off this wall. And now you could put a little section there where you can sit down, or you can meditate, you can do this, you can do that, right? And then the other closets will be open, so now you can put all the clothes in there. Same space, same, everything's the same. It's the co-creation, it's the thought, it's the seeking of God. It is my desire to stay in the presence of God. It's my desire to not complain, to know that whatever God gave me is already good enough. How can I use this to move to where He wants to take me? You see what I'm saying? It's our disbelief. When I started, it's like I started with the disbelief of I don't have enough space. Right? I started with the disbelief, the limited belief of I don't have enough space. I was looking for a new apartment, and I was looking for a co-working space to see which one would be cheaper for me, or which one would be in my budget, right? I was looking for that. And so then I said, well, I like this space. And God was like, you're not moving. So I'm like, okay, God, show me how this space works for me. Instead of being like, I don't want this, and this ain't right, and this ain't enough, blah, 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 blah. Do I want more? Yes, I want more. And I believe God's going to take me there as soon as I max this out, though. You see what I'm saying? That's the problem. Sometimes we want more than what we need in this season. You got to learn the skills to keep going. Stop trying to spiritual bypass. That's the shit that moves you into inauthenticity. Because at each level, you have to learn. All right, let's fill this out. What does the presence of God feel like here? Now let's go here. What does the presence of God feel like here? Right? Yes, it can be accelerated, but you cannot spiritually bypass. There is something to be said about the experience. You see what I'm saying? Boy, what Michelle Obama say? The becoming, baby. Okay, it's something to said about the becoming. Every time you hear about a millionaire, every time you hear about somebody, they're like, "Oh yeah, I started in my spare bedroom, blah blah blah. I had the little sign of this, then third." Listen, and it's something to be said about the fact that you're not afraid, because you know you can come back to this place. You did it before. You see what I'm saying? We don't want to do that no more. We like the air fryer. We like the microwave. We don't like that good crock pot, that oven, that slow burn. You see what I'm saying? And that be the detriment of a lot of people, because moving quick sometimes means you got to be inauthentic. Does that make sense? Authenticity breeds fear. Inauthenticity breeds a playground for fear. And it is the frequency of fear in the ego's favorite place to live. Because I can live here, fear and inauthenticity, fear and the ego can live in the space of inauthenticity very comfortably because you didn't got to the place where you won't check yourself. And 9 times out of 10, once you get to that space, you didn't lost all of the people that would have checked your ass. And you didn't let all the other people in the space say, oh, well, everybody can't go, baby. Everybody can't go, but you ain't got no goddamn body. That's weird. That's weird. If you had to leave behind every single person, okay? You ain't got a damn dog, all right? A cat that you could have brought, baby. I don't know. Because what that's basically saying is there was nothing in the expression of God that I was in that was worthy of coming with me. So you saying there was nothing valuable in that expression of God is what you basically saying. All right? You see what I'm saying? That's weird. And I don't think people realize that because we've been conditioned for so long to think that getting rich, getting materialistic things, elevating means that we have to leave everything that God has ever given us. That shit is not true. Yes, some people can't go. Some people are seasonal people. But let's be honest, you left some of them people behind because they was telling you, this don't really feel like you. Sometimes when a person say you changing, they mean the energy, baby, the spirits of God. It's not feeling like this is the spirit of God, but you left them, and now you're pillhead. Let's talk about it, okay? Because sometimes you left the person that would have kept you from getting cracked out. Sometimes you left the person that would have told you, baby, that contract ain't it. All right. Sometimes you left the person that would have said, these niggas in here are shady. I don't think we should be here. Okay. Sometimes you left the people that would have kept you from getting shot. You see what I'm saying? Sometimes you left valuable people, valuable things, valuable lessons because you thought this was the process to elevation. I'm not gonna lie to you, everybody can't go. But some people, they are God assigns certain people to people in their life. And you think I'm a lie, and even if you're not a Bible reader, read the story of Ruth and I can't think of her name. It's a friendship story. It's a story about a friendship. Ruth and I can't think. I'm gonna put it when I post this. I'm gonna put it in the caption. But it's a story of two friends in the Bible, and sometimes it's like sometimes God assigns people to you, right, for a lifetime to be close to you to keep you in check. And I'm gonna give y'all an example. I remember when I was young. I feel like my husband was always progressing slower than me, right? And it used to upset me because I used to feel like I could be here and I could be here. This is when I was so young. I'm 34 now. I was in my early 20s, right? And what I learned throughout my life and being with my husband, especially as we've matured and he has definitely met me where I am, it's like, no, sometimes you was moving too fast and it's beneficial for you to slow down and read the fucking room first. Okay. And my husband is not a person that make a quick decision, right? And neither am I, honestly. But during that period of the time of my life, I felt like everything needed to be quick because I was still moving in survival mode, right? And my husband would force me to slow down and look. And I'm gonna tell you, that man kept me out of a lot of shit because had I have went with my decision, baby, ain't no telling where we would be. You see what I'm saying? And sometimes that might be your mate, or that might be a close childhood friend, or that might be somebody you met when you was on the rise. You know what I'm saying? That right before you kind of came up with it. That might be somebody, but it is not the will of God for you to just be living in fucking solitude and not having nothing. Goddamn, even Abraham had a goat or two in the Bible. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's not the will of God. You ain't even got a little cat or some shit. All you got is drugs and trauma. No, baby. That's not, God does not desire that for your life. And that's how a lot of people get messed up trying to lead people to come up. Baby, you gotta leave everybody, it might not be for you. And a lot of times, all you got was some damn money. You ain't got shit else. Now you sitting in the mansion in the Maybach with the Birkin bag by your goddamn self, lonely as a motherfucker, sleeping with somebody that you don't even goddamn like, and they don't like you. Truth be told, like let's be honest about it. I love y'all down, but y'all gotta stop that shit. And by y'all, I mean us. Okay, we gotta stop that shit because I'm somebody who will cut people off quick. All right. And I feel like my husband and these kids is some of the only people that they made it for a long period of time. And I got like two friends too that made it for a long period of time. It's all right to release people when they need to be released, but not before you really observe and see like what's happened. You see what I'm saying? Like what's happening. I just think sometimes we leave people behind because they the mirror that would have checked our ass. And we need that in our life. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna tell y'all something else because I feel like we in this space of friendship right now. This is nothing that lead us to inauthenticity. Getting a whole bunch of yes friends. If everybody in your goddamn life is a yes man, baby, you got a problem. You have an integrity problem. All right. If there's nobody in your life that will say that ain't right, you need to pay them people that money that you owe them. You need to say sorry to your man. You need to apologize to your wife. You need to stop knocking your child upside the head every time they tell you that they didn't like the way you talk to them. You need to stop going to the club before you pay your rent. If you ain't got nobody in your life that will tell you that is not love, y'all on this whole we listen and we don't judge, baby. Some of y'all are not judging and supporting y'all friends right into misalignment. All right, right into misalignment. All right. I'm gonna tell you, I had a friend one time, baby. She was mad at me for years. She was acting a goddamn fool about a man leaving her kid all in a whole another state and left the baby on Christmas. Bullshit. I turned to her and I said, she had came to visit me. I lived in Denver. I turned to her and I said, friend, I love you. I love you so much. And I hope that you know that. She said, y'all know you love me, friend. I said, you becoming one of them bitches we talk about. I don't know what this is, but this ain't it. I told her straight to her face. Because the thing is, you trying to support your friend. Everybody out here talking about her goddamn ass. Like, and you truth be told, you talking about her too. Every time you get in the man with your in the bed with your man. I don't know what Shanique doing. I don't know what KK doing. She doing this, that, and the third, blah, 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 blah. That's not real. That's not love. You need to tell her with love. You can tell people with love, this is not right, friend. This is not what you told me you envisioned for your life. This is not the parent that you told me you wanted to be. This is not the person that you told me you wanted to be. This is not how you told me you wanted to live in integrity. You remember when you told me that you want to work on your relationship with God? You remember none of this aligns to that. You ain't got to cuss your friend out or make them feel like a dirty dog to be like, baby, this ain't it. I'm going to tell you, this is why I don't got a lot of friends. Because tell me, all right? I don't like the bitches who let you have a booger in your nose for 45 minutes at a conference and don't tell you because they want to save your feelings. That's not love. And y'all got to stop thinking that that's love. Love is I can tell you the truth, but I can tell you in love. And because I have been a part of your life, you see what I'm saying? In a way that has reflected the love of God back to you, you're going to know and you're going to feel me when I say a thing in love. And you're going to know this is not judgment, this is concern. And truth be told, a lot of us have not learned how to do that. We have not learned how to be in confrontation. And because we have not learned to be in confrontation, instead of actually supporting our friends, we are pushing them into misalignment because we don't have the nuts that we need to have to come up and present ourselves in authenticity before them and allow them to show us that back. And then we can create a frequency of authenticity that is in love, but is in the truth. You see what I'm saying? That's how a lot of people get out of alignment and they get possessed because you watched your friend walk into doors that was not in the presence of God. And they did the same for you. And now y'all ain't friends no more and you wondering why. All right? Does this make sense? I'm that person too. And to be honest, Morgan, we are the people who don't have a lot of friends because a lot of people don't like to hear the truth. But what I will say and what I pride myself on is that even though people don't like to hear the truth, they never leave me the same. They never leave my life the same. Because my truth, of my gifts, I have to live in truth with friends, right? So my truth will always impart in a person's life that will transcend them, whether they wanted to or not, because that is the gift of God in my life. You see what I'm saying? Because I have the gift of prophecy and I have prophetic validity to my word. That's why I'm careful with it. You see what I'm saying? And so, yeah, people might not want to be my friend, and that's fine. But also, like, part of me staying in my authentic expression of God is being honest, because that is what God called me to do. And I think a lot of the trouble for me in my life previously was that I didn't know how to do that in a loving way, like in a loving tone. But God has moved me through that, and I learned how to do that, and I know how to do that now. And so it is not a hard thing for me anymore. But I think sometimes we have to observe that sometimes the harshness that we bring to truth is actually a fear of it being received. And it causes us to not like receive it well. And so I would encourage people, like, if you are this friend and you have not been received well, that you look at your deliverance and you really like, with friends you could be, shoot the shit with, but sometimes everybody needs that softness. You know what I mean? Like, for me, I approach these conversations like this. Hey, friend, do you have a moment to talk? I really need to speak to you about so and so and so, or I really need to speak to you about a few things, right? And then I'll wait till they have a time and a space, and I ask that they come to the conversation with a softened heart, right? And I think that causes a lot of people to reflect on what does a softened heart look like and feel like. And then when they come to the conversation, I always leave with saying, friend, the decisions you've been making are actually concerning to me. I'm concerned about my friend, the human, not my friend, the whatever it is that they do. I'm concerned because when you did this, and this, it didn't align to what you told me and you asked me to keep you accountable to in life, right? And sometimes I realize that my friend didn't ask me to keep them accountable to something. But what I usually will say in that instance is like, you told me that you envision this for your life. Has that vision changed? Okay. And sometimes they say that vision has changed. And then I will tell them, I cannot watch you do this. So because of that, I'm going to take a step back, because I don't aid people in self sabotage, but I let them know what I am available to do. If you decide that you want to do A, B, and C, and I don't pigeonhole them. So don't say like, if you decide that you want to blah, 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 but and force them into something. Don't say that. But I'm just like, this doesn't feel in alignment to me. I'm always here for you in whatever way, a capacity, and be honest about that capacity that I list, that I've decided I can do before I came to have this conversation. I'm always available to you in this capacity. I'm not available to watch you do this. Like, you have to be honest, because now you at home stressed out, combing out your hair. You supposed to be having sex with your husband, your partner, your man, your woman, your wife, and you at home talking about them. Your husband got the candles on and shit, but you so stressed out because your friend falling apart. And it's like, you needed to be honest and get that shit off your chest. And if they decided to make the decision, that was always on them to begin with. You can't make decisions for them, but you can decide what you have the capacity for it. And the reality is, a lot of us don't do that. We don't be honest with ourselves about what we have the capacity for. Because I don't have the capacity to watch people move out of alignment. That shit is stressful. It's hard for me. If you fall flat on your motherfucking face, baby, I will hug you and blow you a kiss, and I will pray for you, and I will be here for you. But I can't watch the process. That shit is stressful for me. And I need this capacity for my husband and my children. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the truth. We be trying to give more than what we got, and we think that's friendship.